Hello everyone and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today I'm sharing another Christmas card that was inspired by one of my previous cards but in another way. So I'm using the city box from Hello Bluebird and I'm only going to feature two images, so I'm going for a clean and simple card. Now with the background I went a bit, well, I went a bit further with the background, but I think you will kind of remember which card I was sort of inspired by. First, the coloring. So I have these two images on Transotype perfect coloring paper. I stamped it out with Gina K Designs Amalgam ink Obsidian, the black one. And I had this idea to do these presents in blue to purple. Which was something that I haven't done so far, and I definitely think there are some improvements that I still can do. But as I told you in one of my previous videos, we will only know if we can something, or we can only improve if we tried something and saw what we can improve on, and that's how we will get better in things. And so I decided to try something out today, and at first I thought it was really rubbish, but I just went for it and I just kept going. And actually now I quite like the coloring. The coloring of the presents, of course, was the most difficult part of the coloring here. And as you can see, I just keep going. I cannot say that I just added 2 layers or 3, depending on which which present. I went over it quite a lot. So yeah, I just thought at first I'll try it, then I thought this looks rubbish, and then I thought, well, it can only improve at this stage, so I just kept going, and that's how I ended up with my presents. For the cat, I am going to use the same blues. I also have all of the colors that I used on my blog post listed, easy for reference if you are interested. Now here I just kept building up. I went over that pinkish with the blue, and I got something kind of, well, I don't know which color that is that I got right in the middle, but then I decided to heat set everything because I quite oversaturated the paper, and so this way I could go back in there with another layer. So whenever the paper is acting like it's sort of oversaturated, or it isn't taking on the ink anymore, then just heat set it or let it set aside if you don't have a heat gun, and come back later when the paper has rested and is ready for another round. I tend to use my heat gun because I have zero patience, and I also need to edit everything out if I don't use my heat gun. So just to make it a bit easier later on for myself, that's what I did. And actually at this stage I started to like what I saw. And then I just made sure to also do all of the bows and fixing those mistakes. I went outside of the lines quite a bit, so the colorless blender, my best friend in my Copic coloring adventures, definitely is always really close by to fix all of the issues. So those are the packages, and then I decided to go with grays for the cat. Now I personally find that silver and blue and silver and purple works really well. So that was my kind of idea for the cat, and then I was going to do the sentiment with gray or with silver, and you will see that that just didn't work. So I had to fix it somehow. Now for the background, I wanted to also recreate the colors that I had in the packages. So I tried that, and then I thought, well, how can I do this in a cute kind of way? And I started with some masking and stuff, and I actually tried to recreate a background that I recently did with my Copic markers, where I tried to sort of have a landscape. I found that it wasn't working, but I just kept going, and the more that I looked at it, the more that I liked it. And if you are here quite often, then you will know which one I'm talking about. I got so many gorgeous comments from each and everyone that the card turned out fine and that it was gorgeous, even when it didn't work out the way I wanted it to, and I was so flattered, and it really did me well. But I tried to do it in a different way today, a bit more in my comfort zone by using distress inks, and that's actually how this card came together. So that was a lot of fun, also with a bit of hiccups, but you will see that in what's next. But now for the scarf and the hat, I decided to go with dots. I never do that, and I'm not really good in it. There are some amazing people that I follow on Instagram, and I don't recall who exactly because there are a few, but they use their markers and they actually add dots to their images, and that's how they also build up the shadowing, and I'm always amazed. And I thought, well, maybe I can just do something like a dotted scarf or a dotted hat, and I just went for it, and I wasn't completely convinced, but I also added some white jelly roll pen. And actually, the more that I look at this this way of coloring, the more that I start to like it as well. But it was a bit strange for me to do so, but I think that it can definitely work. A knitted scarf barely has exactly the same colors everywhere, so with that idea in mind, I just went for it. And once I was happy with the coloring, I took the matching dies to cut these two images out, and then it was all about the background. And I must admit, I tried several backgrounds. I had an initial idea that didn't work, so that I took out of this video, but all the rest I will show you. So I trimmed down a panel that is measuring a mini slimline card base. There are several mini slimline sizes. Mine is 3.5 by 6.25. That's also the size by Crafty Morocco, and that was the first brand that introduced to me the mini slimline dies. So therefore I always use this size, and it's really handy. So I went through my distress inks and I came up with these colors that sort of looked like the same colors as my presents. I also took some post-it tape and I masked off areas just a bit wonky every time again to do some ink blending with another color. Now I worked my way right until the other edge, and I didn't like it. Not every stripe was working, so I went over it with other colors to fix that, but we're not yet there. I first gave every color a chance. So I added it. I also reused quite a lot of the post-it tape because, well, I'm not wasting any sticking post-it tape. And I'm just doing an even blend. I'm not worrying about shadowing or adding another layer or anything like that. That's not what is happening. And here you can already see that the colors, however, they look quite good, I think, with the caps on. On paper it didn't work, so it was a bit of a disappointment. It was already the third background that I tried, and I definitely didn't want to quit today on this background because I was really thinking these two images will never get onto a card if I continue like this. So I had to figure it out with this background how I could fix it and how I could start liking it more to go with my images. Also here I didn't add the post-it tape really well, so trying to fix that later on as well. But first I also added the black soot. Well, I like the black soot, however. But also a risk, of course, because that's a really dark color. If you want to get rid of that, that's just not an option. So I tried out to lay my images on top and I didn't like it, as I said. So I took other colors to go over some areas. Here the light blue, although it was cute, it didn't work. So I went over it with purple, and actually with the blue underneath I got another color than what I already had from that purple. So that was lovely. And I like the contrast between the two bottom colors that I now had. So here I try to fix that white sliver. There is just a tiny bit left there, but no worries, I'm going to add some white splatters. So I took my white gouache and I masked off the bottom there. Not that it was going to be a big deal because that stayed white, of course, but I just wanted it to be on the background. Also, I didn't want it to be on the images, I just wanted it on the background. So this background really turned out modern. Can we call it like that? There is not really a gradient that I try to do. There are just even layers of every color that I had. And then I'm adding a lot of white gouache. So I'm splattering it a bit over on top of everything. And I just kept going quite a bit, not realizing that I also still had to add a sentiment, but details. We cannot take everything into account. But for the sentiment, I took the big Christmas greetings, and I thought, as I said in the beginning, silver works really well with both colors, blue and purple in my opinion. So I was going to use my silver embossing powder. So here I prepped my panel, and I'm going to stem this joy multiple times using Versamark glitter embossing ink. I started with the silver embossing powder from L'Enfant, and I'm showing it here because maybe you do like it, but the thing that was frustrating for me, or what I didn't like about it, was that it just didn't stand out from the background enough. So here I'm also adding a few stars. These are also from the set, the big Christmas greetings. So I added the L'Enfant silver. This is the only silver that I have, but I really like this one. However, let me just fix some mistakes and then heat set it to show you what I meant. So whenever I have tiny details that I need to fix, I prefer using something with a small tip like a craft knife to help me get rid in those tiny areas of excess embossing powder. And then I got this, and although I love the silver, it wasn't present enough. And it was also the point that I thought, well, okay, so background 3 ruined again, there is no salvation here. But then I thought, okay, but the joy is still in the same spot in my Misty. I didn't remove it yet. So maybe I can just go over it and then use white heat embossing powder. So I did that. I tried it and I thought, okay, maybe this is the solution. I heat set it to see whether it worked, and it worked. However, there were still some gaps. I also decided to stem those stars out again and go over them as well with some white embossing powder. That helped as well. And then I thought, well, maybe, just maybe, I can do this a third time to really get rid of those tiny areas where there is still some silver coming through. And, well, that actually fixed it. So miraculously I could still use this background, and I'm really glad. And actually the 3 layers are also really fun. I'm going to show you up close as well what it turned out to be. But yeah, that was a great fix. My background was ready. I buffed off the excess embossing powder, well, the anti-static embossing powder thingy, and then I could add this panel on top of a mini slimline card base. Then I decided to add the present straight on top of my card base, and the cat I added using some thin foam squares. And as you can see, it's a really simple card. I do think that the background makes it a bit more complex, but as you saw me building up this card, it was a really simple background in the end. It was a bit of a search finding the colors to work, but I think it worked out. It's a bit different, but some people will love it, others probably won't, but I like it. I'm glad that I tried it. Also, if Copic markers are something that you're afraid of to use on backgrounds, I totally get it. Distressings are my go-to, so That's why I wanted to try it this way as well. So this is my card for today. I truly hope that you enjoyed this video and that you are inspired by it. If you have any questions, you can leave them down below in the comments. I will get back to you as soon as possible. I want to wish you already a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. I wish you all the best. Thank you so much for sticking around. I truly appreciate it. And I want to wish you an incredible day. And I'll be back soon. Bye!